Hi, I'm Katie Wilson and welcome to A News. Here are the headlines. Specialists recover flight recorders from the crashed American Airlines plane as Trump claims diversity hiring policies for the crash. Russian forces are advancing on the strategically important Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk, putting key supply routes at risk. The situation remains tense in the Democratic Republic of Congo as rebel leaders vow to hold Goma and push forward towards Kinshasa. No survivors. After American Airlines flight collided with Black Hawk helicopter over Washington DC's Potomac River. Both flight recorders have already been recovered as specialists continue the investigation. The plane coming from Wichita had 60 passengers and 40 crew members while on board, while the military helicopter carried 3 soldiers.
Surveillance footage shows the moment the American Airlines regional passenger jet collided mid-air with the US Army Black Hawk helicopter near the Reagan-Washington National Airport on Wednesday night. In the footage, 2 sets of aircraft lights can be seen behind the Lincoln Memorial, with one moving toward the other until they cross paths and an explosion is seen mid-air. Eyewitness Abadi Ismail, a resident near the crash site, described the scene as horrific and unbelievable.
Everything happened somewhere around 8:50 p.m. local time, Eastern time. I was getting ready to go to bed, laying down when I heard a bang bang, a very unusual sound, something you don't hear on a daily basis. It's more like on a war zone, something you hear on movies, action. So that caught my attention. I looked up the sky, I looked up the window, and all I could see at that moment was just smokes from the south side of Reagan Airport.
According to sources from American Airlines, 60 passengers, 2 pilots, and 2 crew members were on the plane. Additionally, 3 soldiers were aboard the Black Hawk helicopter. White House National Security Advisor confirmed that bodies have been recovered from the scene. Officials said there are no survivors expected, with the Potomac River's temperature at 2.2 degrees Celsius on Wednesday, significantly reducing chances of survival. The collision has prompted widespread concern as officials work to identify the victims. US figure skating confirmed that several skaters and their families were returning from the US Championships in Kansas. Among the victims were ice skating coaches and former world champions Yevgenia Shishkova and Vadim Naumov. Kremlin confirms former champion Russian skaters were on board the plane.
We have already checked through all available channels. There were 14 skaters and coaches on board. It is fortunate that Vadik and Zhenya's son, Maxim, was not on board. He has just participated in this competition, performed well, I think, even qualified for the World Championship.
Flight data from FlightRadar24.com shows the jet signal was lost over the Potomac River. Air traffic control audio revealed that the Black Hawk helicopter crew was aware of the nearby passenger plane as it was approaching the airport for landing. Less than 30 seconds before the collision, air traffic recordings show controllers asking the helicopter if it has the plane in sight and instructing it to pass behind the landing aircraft.
It's quite possible that this...
Aviation expert Jeffrey Thomas highlighted the importance of the Black Hawk's tracking system, which was reportedly turned off at the time of the collision. Thomas stressed that the lack of an automatic dependent surveillance broadcast system could have contributed to the crash.
What that tells me is that this was a training flight of the helicopter. It apparently did not have its ADS-B tracking system turned on. This is the signal that's sent out to air traffic control to track aircraft. And it also is a vital component of another system called TCAS, which is Traffic Collision Avoidance System, fitted to all commercial aircraft and military aircraft, which alerts them to other aircraft on a collision course, but the ADS-B must be turned on.
American Airlines CEO Robert Isom expressed his deep sorrow and confirmed that the airline is cooperating with the NTSB investigation.
We're cooperating fully with the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation and will continue to provide all the information we can. Our cooperation is without pause, and we want to learn everything we can about today's events.
We canceled $181
In response to the tragic incident, US President Donald Trump offered his condolences and commended the efforts of first responders. He also pledged to monitor the situation closely. Later, Trump issued a second statement describing the crash as a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Following the crash, the airport halted all flights as emergency services responded. Both flight recorders have already been recovered as specialists continue investigation.
In a recent press briefing, President Trump discusses the potential impact of diversity policies on aviation safety following the fatal crash.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
US President Donald Trump questioned whether diversity and inclusion initiatives at the Federal Aviation Administration played a role in a deadly crash. Trump criticized the emphasis on hiring for diversity, reading from a statement that highlighted disabilities targeted in recruitment for air traffic controllers. He blamed the policies for lowering standards, arguing that the focus should be on competency and psychological qualifications, not diversity. Trump also took aim at Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, calling him a disaster and accusing him of mismanaging the department. He suggested that the focus on diversity hiring had compromised the safety of air travel. In response to a question on the investigation, Trump said while the cause was still unclear, diversity policies could have contributed to the crash. Trump's comments came amid a broader discussion on the standards and leadership within the FAA, and they sparked a response from Buttigieg, who defended his record in improving air travel safety.
President Trump stated that he would likely decide by the end of the day whether to impose a 25% tariff on oil imports from Mexico and Canada, effective from February 1st. Trump has warned both countries that tariffs could be enacted unless they address fentanyl shipments and migrant flows across US borders. Canadian and Mexican officials have not yet responded to requests for comment. Russian forces are steadily advancing on the eastern Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk, putting key supply routes at risk. With Ukraine facing manpower shortages, defending the area has become increasingly difficult. If Pokrovsk falls, it could open the door for further Russian offensives towards strategic cities in the region.
Russian forces are gradually tightening their grip on Pokrovsk, threatening vital supply lines. While Ukrainian troops continue to defend the city, its encirclement of fall could allow Russia to launch new offensives in multiple directions and increase pressure on Kyiv.
But as the Russians now have gotten closer and are, let's say, within artillery range of that of Pokrovsk and able to fly FPV drones over the city, it is clear that the city is no longer an important communication hub for the Ukrainians. It can't be used as a logistical center anymore.
Recent footage from Pokrovsk shows a bleak landscape, with the few remaining civilians moving through devastated streets as artillery fire echoes nearby. Kyiv continues to face recruitment and mobilization challenges.
Ukrainian units are simply running out of infantry, and they are not getting enough replacements to fill back their frontline battalions, and this causes the units on the front to be weak. And because they are weak, there are gaps in the Ukrainian lines. It offers more opportunities for the Russians to exploit them.
Inside Pokrovsk, living conditions are dire. The regional governor reports that only 7,000 residents remain from a pre-war population of 60,000. Analysis suggests that if Russia captures Pokrovsk, it could serve as a staging ground for further advances toward Kramatorsk and Slovyansk, the largest Ukrainian-controlled cities in Donetsk.
Russians would like to gain this crossroad network hub for themselves, because just as it was a very good logistical center for the Ukrainians before, it can be such for the Russians in the future if they take it.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian's Air Force reported shooting down 59 of 102 drones launched by Russia in an overnight attack on Friday. An additional 37 drones were lost due to electronic warfare interference. The attack caused damage in the northeastern Sumy region, the southern Odessa region and the central Cherkasy region, though details were not provided.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, has expressed strong disapproval over Ukraine's decision to block Russian gas flows through its territory. The Prime Minister called the move unacceptable, blaming it for rising energy costs. Orban stressed the need for assurances to secure Hungary's supply, noting that European nations have lost 19 billion euros due to sanctions since the start of the war in Ukraine. Earlier, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas confirmed a 6-month extension of sanctions on Russia. However, Orban warned that Hungary would veto future extensions without energy security guarantees. Hamas has released 8 hostages, 3 Israelis and 5 Thai nationals, in the latest exchange with Israel as part of the ceasefire deal. Israel in turn released 110 Palestinian prisoners after an initial delay they claim was caused by chaotic scenes at one of the handover points in Gaza.
Israeli hostage Agam Berger was released in Gaza on Thursday as a part of a ceasefire deal. The handover took place in Jabalia, where Berger was transferred to the International Committee of the Red Cross. Crowds of Palestinians watched the release. Along with Berger, 2 other Israeli hostages, Gadi Moses and Arbel Yahud, were also freed. More than 250 people were taken hostage during the October 7th. Some have been released in the past exchanges, but Israel still has 90 hostages in Gaza. The conflict has caused major loss of life and destruction in Gaza. Qatar, Egypt, and the United States have played a key role in mediating between Israel and Hamas, facilitating to reach a ceasefire and the release of hostages. A video released by the Islamic Jihadi group showed 2 of the freed hostages, Arbel Yahud and Gadi Moses, sharing an emotional hug and smile before their release on Thursday. An Israeli official said the 3 hostages would likely be taken to hospitals in Israel for checks, though that could change depending on their health. A crowd gathered in Tel Aviv to celebrate the release of the hostages, cheering when they heard the news of the release in northern Gaza.
Although the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas has halted the war in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in the region has deepened. Palestinians returning to their home amidst the destruction are facing harsh living conditions, a lack of shelter and sanitation issues.
As Palestinians return to their homes, those returning step into the unknown, walking towards the ruins, unaware of what awaits them. Residents returning to the Tel Al-Hawa neighborhood in the southern part of Gaza City have found their homes in ruins. The area, devastated by Israeli attacks, is now in an uninhabitable condition for many. Displaced Palestinians have been forced to set up temporary tents near their destroyed homes. However, their struggles extend beyond finding shelter. In addition to the lack of adequate housing, there is a serious concern over the lack of clean drinking water and electricity. The destruction of the wastewater drainage system due to conflict has worsened sanitation and hygiene issues. Despite these hardships, Palestinians are deeply grateful to return to their homeland. However, the fate of 11,000 people is still unknown. The widespread destruction and humanitarian crisis have had particularly devastating effects on the elderly and children. The United Nations and international organizations have warned that the situation is critical. But delivering significant humanitarian aid to the region remains a challenge. Palestinians are looking to the international community for increased humanitarian aid and long-term solutions to the crisis that will finally bring sustainable peace.
The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees is still operating in Gaza, the West Bank and East Jerusalem, despite Israel's ban on the agency. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric confirmed that UNRWA continues to provide assistance and services to communities, with clinics in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, remaining open. Humanitarian operations in Gaza are also ongoing, with the agency reaffirming its commitment to staying and delivering aid. Dujarric spoke to reporters at a briefing at the UN headquarters, highlighting UNRWA's continued efforts in challenging conditions.
UNRWA told us today, and we've been speaking to them by phone a number of times this morning, that they are continuing to deliver assistance and services to the communities they're serving. UNRWA clinics across the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, are open. Meanwhile, the humanitarian operations in Gaza continues, including with UNRWA work there. UNRWA says it is committed to staying and delivering.
Tensions continue to rise in the Democratic Republic of Congo as Corneille Nangaa, leader of the Congo River Alliance rebel coalition, vows to maintain control of Goma and push forward towards the capital, Kinshasa. The situation in the region remains volatile, with widespread displacement and growing international concern over escalating violence and foreign involvement.
The leader of the Congo River Alliance rebel coalition, Corneille Nangaa, has vowed to hold Goma and push forward towards Kinshasa. At a press conference, he accused the government of militarizing the region and defended his forces' control of the city. Speaking in Goma days after its capture, Nangaa claimed the rebels were establishing secure humanitarian corridors to allow displaced civilians to return. He insisted that key roads, including those to Rutshuru and Sake, were now under rebel control and critical for supplying essential goods. However, the situation in Goma remains tense. Streets are largely deserted, with debris and abandoned military fatigue scattered across the city. M23 fighters, heavily armed and patrolling in pickup trucks, maintain their presence as uncertainty lingers over the city's future. Nangaa sharply criticized President Felix Tshisekedi's government, accusing it of reckless militarization and arming untrained civilians. He claimed that foreign forces had been invited into the conflict, escalating tensions in the already volatile eastern region. The rebel advance has triggered a humanitarian crisis, forcing thousands to flee into Rwanda. As M23 fighters push south towards Bukavu, international pressure is mounting on Rwanda over its alleged support for the rebels. Meanwhile, protests in Kinshasa against Rwanda's involvement have led to attacks on foreign embassies.
5 years ago, the UK left the European Union, a decision that changed the country's future. The journey to Brexit took decades, driven by debate over sovereignty and EU ties. Today, its impact is still shaping trade, politics, and Britain's place in the world.
Today, we mark 5 years since the United Kingdom left the European Union, a historic moment that redefined the nation's place in the world. Brexit was not a sudden decision, but the culmination of decades of political debate, shifting public opinion, and complex negotiations. In this report, we trace the key events that led to Brexit and explore how it unfolded. The UK joined the European Economic Community, or EEC, in 1973, viewing membership as an economic opportunity. However, the relationship was contentious from the start. In 1975, a referendum was held to confirm the UK's membership, with 67% voting to remain. But tensions over sovereignty and EU integration persisted. In the 1980s, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher strongly opposed the EU gaining more power, particularly policies that could limit the UK's economic control. Her stance aligned with rising Euroscepticism within the Conservative Party.
Chairman or the President of the Commission, Mr. Delors, said at press conference the other day that he wanted the European Parliament to be the democratic body of the community, he wanted the Commission to be the executive, and he wanted the Council of Ministers to be the Senate. No, no, no.
The Maastricht Treaty of 1992 marked a turning point. It transformed the EEC into the European Union, introducing the concept of unified political and economic structure. Many in the UK saw this as a step too far, fueling demands for the country to reclaim its sovereignty.
Economic and monetary union.
The EU's 2004 enlargement, which welcomed 10 new member states, further stoked public debate. The influx of workers from these countries, particularly from Eastern Europe, raised concerns about immigration and its impact on wages, public services and social cohesion. This period saw the rise of the UK Independence Party, led by Nigel Farage, whose central platform was leaving the EU.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
In 2013, Prime Minister David Cameron, under pressure from within his party and the public, promised an in-out referendum on EU membership. He campaigned to remain in the EU, arguing that it was the best way to secure the UK's economic stability and global influence. However, divisions within his party and among the public made the outcome uncertain. The referendum took place on June 23, 2016, with historic turnout of 72%. The result was 51.9% in favour of leaving the EU. This result revealed deep divisions across the UK, with England and Wales largely supporting Brexit, while Scotland and Northern Ireland voted to remain. The Leave campaign, led by figures like Boris Johnson and Michael Gove, focused on themes of sovereignty, control over immigration and reclaiming financial contributions to the EU. In contrast, the Remain campaign warned of economic risks and global isolation.
It was not the result I wanted, nor the outcome that I believe is best for the country I love. But there can be no doubt about the result.
The referendum result sent shockwaves through the political establishment. David Cameron resigned as Prime Minister the day after the vote, paving the way for Theresa May to take over. In March 2017, May invoked Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, formally starting the two-year process withdrawing from the EU.
I hope we can all agree we are now at the moment of decision. And I will make every effort to ensure that we are able to leave with a deal and move our country forward.
However, negotiations with the EU proved far more complex than anticipated. Disagreements over trade, the Irish border, and the rights of EU citizens in the UK led to repeated delays and political stalemates. In July 2019, Theresa May resigned after failing to secure support for the Brexit deal. Boris Johnson succeeded her as Prime Minister, promising to get Brexit done.
Now is the moment for us to get Brexit done and then together to work on building our future partnership.
On January 31, 2020, the UK officially left the EU, entering an 11-month transition period to finalise future trade and regulatory arrangements.
Any regrets? We're leaving. Freedom, democracy, self-governance.
The transition period ended on December 31st of the same year, when the UK exited the EU single market and customs union. This marked the start of a new chapter in UK-EU relations. 5 years after Brexit, its effects continue to unfold. Politically, Brexit has reshaped the UK, fueling debates about the union's future, particularly in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Economically, the country has faced both opportunities and challenges, including changes in trade patterns and labour shortages in key sectors.
The UK government has issued guidance to help UK exporters identify and counter attempts by third parties to evade or circumvent trade sanctions on Russia. Among the countries of concern is Armenia. This follows reports of Armenia's growing trade volume with Russia, particularly in the gold sector, which has raised suspicions of circumvention.
The UK government has included Armenia in its list of countries of concern for exporters, warning UK businesses to be cautious when trading with the country. This guidance is part of efforts to prevent goods from being misappropriated or re-exported to Russia, which continues to bypass Western sanctions through third countries. Russia remains Armenia's top trading partner, according to data from Armenia's Statistical Committee, indicating that Russia's exports to the country surged by $5.6 billion to nearly $8.3 billion during the first 10 months of 2024. Additionally, Armenia has seen a major rise in gold imports from Russia, according to data from Armenia's customs service. This has raised concerns that Yerevan may be acting as a key route for Russian gold and diamonds, further complicating its position on the global stage as a third-party country. Armenia's trade turnover with the UAE has also grown dramatically, prompting further scrutiny regarding its involvement in facilitating Russian sanctions evasion, particularly through gold exports.
A poll done by Gallup in Armenia showed most citizens believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. Economic struggles and security concerns are among top issues, while EU accession remains a divisive topic.
A recent survey by Gallup International Association reveals that 58.5% of Armenians believe the country is on the wrong track, while only 24.2% think it's heading in the right direction. Security concerns top the list of issues, with 39.5% citing them as the most urgent problem. Border demarcation was mentioned by 21% of respondents, while 15.6% highlighted the threat of war. In addition to security and political concerns, poverty remains a significant challenge. Previous data shows that over 25% of the Armenian population lives below the poverty line, especially in rural areas where access to jobs, healthcare, and essential services is limited. Inflation and rising living costs have further worsened economic conditions, leading to widespread dissatisfaction with the government's economic policies. As a result, 14% of respondents identified economic challenges as the main problem. The survey, conducted between January 20th and 22nd, also found that 55% of Armenians support the country's EU accession, though opinions are divided, with 12% somewhat opposed and 19.3% completely against it. In the same time, 51% of respondents believe Armenia will join the EU within the next 10 years, though 40% disagree. Regarding national security, 27% of Armenians believe that the country's EU aspirations and its strategic partnership with the US will enhance security, while 24.2% fear these steps could create new risks. With growing concerns over security, economic instability, and poverty, the survey underscores a mounting sentiment that Armenia is struggling to navigate its challenges, leaving many uncertain about the country's future direction.
In space news, asteroid Bennu samples were found to contain organic compounds, including amino acids and nuclear bases. Scientists say these findings are proof that asteroids may have helped seed early life on Earth.
Take a peek.
NASA's analysis of asteroid Bennu samples has found key organic compounds, such as amino acids and nucleobases, essential for life. Collected by OSIRIS-REx in 2020 and delivered to Earth in 2023, these samples suggest that asteroids may have significantly contributed to the emergence of life on early Earth. 2 studies in Nature Astronomy and Nature revealed that the samples contain organic compounds and minerals from evaporated brine, suggesting conditions for prebiotic chemistry. Unlike meteorites, which can be contaminated after landing, these samples offer an untainted record of the solar system's early chemistry. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson states that their main goal is to assist scientists in studying planets for years to come.
And why are we doing this? Because at NASA, we are trying to find out who we are, what we are, where we came from. And this mission will help our scientists investigate planet formation for generations to come. And it's going to deepen our understanding of our solar system.
Scientists assume Bennu formed from a large icy celestial body. Believed to be destroyed 1 to 2 billion years ago, the remnants became Bennu and other rubble pile asteroids, preserving ancient materials that could reveal clues about the origins of life.
That's all we have for now at this hour. Stay tuned to A News for more exclusive updates. We'll be back soon.